so we're just going to do a little Q&A and find out about Sarah Maya's story. So, Sarah Maya, what's your story?
Hi, everybody. So, about 15 years ago, I was experiencing a lot of anxiety attacks and depression. I was no longer able to work because it was taking over my life. I was sometimes staying home and even keeping my husband home with me, thinking that something terrible was going to happen. I had a lot of images of loved ones dying, of terrible things happening, and I was fearful of sharing that with others, and became just increasingly isolated with my thinking. And yeah, I had anxiety attacks that pulled me off of an airplane once, you know, like immediate blindness, sweaty palms, diarrhea.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned to me that you've tried many tools and somehow landed on the work. Can you just talk about the tools that you had practiced and how you landed on the work?
Yeah, so basically when coping with, you know, the usual numbing techniques like TV and codependency and alcohol, drugs, when that was just no longer working, I started to see a psychologist. I started to do some yoga, and everything was allowing me to feel more able to cope in my life, and yet I didn't feel like the root cause of what was happening to me was being addressed. And I kept on feeling just that same kind of isolation increasing. And like you shared this morning, I found myself, I remember one night just in my bath, just thinking, I really get why people don't decide to continue living and, you know, commit suicide, and that really scared me. And yeah. Okay,
and so since doing the work, can you tell us how you are now and how you feel?
Yeah, so
the impact of the work.
So since doing the work, life has just increasingly become more and more free, open, joyous. I feel more connected to myself. I feel more connected with others. And I've become a mom. I work again. I'm able to sit here in front of you, which is a testament to this work, for sure.
Great. So can you tell, I'm sure you're all wondering,
yeah,
okay, what is this work, right? Okay, could you run through that for us?
So
we prepared some slides.
Yeah, so the work of Byron Katie is a simple yet powerful process of self-inquiry. It's a way to identify our thoughts and then to question them. And so any thought that would make us suffer, and that could be just from slight irritability all the way to terror, we identify those thoughts and then we question them using 4 simple questions, like as a meditation, and then what's called a turnaround, which is a way to look at the opposite of what we were originally thinking and believing, and to see where that might be true as well.
Great. This is a good time to run through the questions?
Yeah. Okay. So the first question is it true? So once you've identified a thought that you have that you would want to question, this is the first question that you ask yourself. And the answer is either a yes or a no. So that might take you a while to answer. And then the second question is, can you absolutely know that that's true? The third question is, how do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? So this is just so radical to witness the cause, you know, the effect, I mean, of believing a thought. So this allows us to witness, you know, how we treat ourselves, how we treat others. This might show us where obsessions and compulsions come in, addictions. And then the fourth question is, who would you be without that thought? And this is, again, just a radical question to sit in and to contemplate. And then the next part of the work is to turn the thought around. So for example, if we were working on the thought, he or she should listen to me. Anybody here ever have the thought that somebody should listen to you?
I think everybody should listen to me.
Yeah, so that's like a thought that I have every morning, I would say, with my son, just trying to get him dressed to go to school.
Yeah.
So then after we've questioned that thought, so he should listen to me, we would take it through each of the 4 questions, and then we turn the thought around. He should listen to me, turned around, he shouldn't listen to me. And then we find examples of why it might be true in that situation that he shouldn't listen. Another way to turn it around would be, I should listen to me in that situation. And so this might seem weird at first, to turn the thought around and to consider opposites and to find examples. And we're just showing you at this point what it is so that you have a little bit of an idea of what we're going to do together this afternoon. And another opposite is to the other. So instead of he should listen to me, I should listen to him. And then you can find examples of how that might be true. So that's the work. Simple, right?
So we're gonna practice this. Sarah, Maya, and I discussed the slides quite a bit, and I guess what we came up with is that we can try to describe to you however long it takes, but the only way that we can really, that you really understand, or that we could all really understand how powerful the work is to do it. And it's like riding a bicycle. You can, if you remember the first time you were riding a 2-wheeler, it's like, okay, just get on and pedal. But we have to find our balance. You have to figure out the handlebars. You have to see where you have to look. So I think this is probably a good time to just dive into the work.
Yeah. So, yeah. I think one more thing is just what I love about the work is that it's personal work. So there's no theory, there's no agenda, there's no dogma attached. It's your own answers that are actually where the realizations take place. So sometimes people will ask me, like, how did the work change me? And it's not the work in and of itself that changed me, but the insights that I discovered when I was answering the questions.
Right.
And that's my own wisdom. Mm-hmm. So this is like a key to access your own wisdom.
And what I love about the work is that it's not dependent on an external source. So we're not dependent on someone to guide us or to lead us somewhere or to soothe us. All the answers are coming from within us. And we see when we're doing the work that we hold all our own answers. So I love that. Okay, so should I let you take it away? It's a good time?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Enjoy, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the first part of the work is to identify what we're thinking and believing in a certain situation that might have caused us stress. So I invite you all right now to take a moment to consider a time when you were in an argument with someone. It might be from a long time ago. It might be something recent. And notice where you are. Notice who you're with. Is it a parent, a child, a partner? Maybe it's a coworker or a friend. It doesn't have to be a big argument, and it could be that it is. And notice your surroundings. Notice, is it morning? Is it evening? Are you inside or outside? standing, sitting, on the phone, or in person. And notice what you're feeling in that situation. And when you've found your situation, open up your folder, and on the left-hand side, there's a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. And you can fill out statement number 1. In this situation, who upsets you and why? So, for example, I'm with my mom and my son, and we're in the driveway, and she wants to take him to the pool, the municipal pool, paddling pool, and he doesn't have floaters, and she's insisting on taking him, and that she'll be really careful, and I'm against it. And so in that situation, who upsets me and why? My mom isn't listening to me. I'm upset with my mom because she isn't listening to me. In that situation, number 2, how do you want them to change? What do you want them to do? So now I'm staying in that moment when we're arguing. She's in the car, I'm standing outside. In that situation where she isn't listening to me, how do I want her to change? What do I want her to do? So I've written, I want her to stop taking it personally. I want her to stop arguing with me, and I want her to back off. So using short and simple sentences, see if you can identify what it is that you wanted from them in that moment. And then number 3, in that situation, what advice would you offer them? So again, I'm going back to that moment in time, and I'm really considering my mom in that situation. What advice could I give her that would get me what I want, which is for her to listen to me? wrote, she should let me mother Zia my way. She shouldn't take my no as an affront, an affront, and she should listen to me. And number 4, in order for you to be happy in this situation, what do you need them to think, say, feel, or do? So again, anchoring yourself in the emotion that you were experiencing, anchoring yourself in your upset at that time. What is it that you needed from them? What did you need them to say, think, feel, or do in order for you to be happy again? I wrote, I need Mom to notice my fear. I need her to stop making it personal. I need her to tell me that she understands. I need her to follow my direction. And I need her to stay connected with me. And you can always read back what you've written so far and just check it out. If they were to do those things, if they were to say those things, would that make you happy in that situation, or is there something more? And number 5, what do you think of them in this situation? Make a list. And remember, get in touch with the emotions that you were feeling at the time. And so this is my mother, who I love deeply. And in that situation, in that moment, what was I thinking about her? And I don't have to guess. I go back to that moment, feel the hurt, feel the anger, and it's all there. The answers are there. I wrote, Mom is selfish, irritating, insecure, argumentative, insensitive, unfair. Immature. This worksheet is like, I I'll often refer to it like this unconditional listening presence. It has no judgments. It's like, what was going on for you in that situation? Tell me everything. It's safe on this paper. It can do no harm to anyone. Such a relief to find a place to dump it. Number 6, what is it about this person and situation that you never want to experience again? So if you were allowed to say that out loud, what would it sound like? As you look at that moment, that situation, what is it about it that you don't ever want to experience again? And there might be more than one thing. I wrote, I never want my mom to override what I want as a mother again. I never want her to question my mother again. And I don't ever want to have to defend myself again. So, who would volunteer to read what you've written? Jan. Do you want to just stand up and then the people with the mics know where to go?
Sorry. Okay, I'm at home, it's nighttime, we're in the living room, I'm standing, and we're in person. Kat doesn't support my emotions. I want Kat to understand my discomfort. I want Kat to have my back. Kat shouldn't expect me to always have things under control. Kat should make sure I feel comfortable. I need Kat to put me first, to tell me what to wear to the Hanukkah dinner, to understand my nervous confusion. Kat is selfish, unsupportive, disconnected. I never want Kat to overlook my feelings again. I never want Kat to think I have it all figured out.
Thank you. Familiar? Any thought there that's new? Like any thought that you haven't had at one time or another about someone as you listened to that example Anyone else like to share what you wrote? There's someone over here.
All right, 4 p.m. at work, sitting and texting my boyfriend. So I wrote, "The situation upsets me because my boyfriend is annoying." I'm sharing a lot with a lot of you. I want him to leave me alone and not need me. I know that if he wants to keep me, he needs to give me my space. I need him to find others to confide in. I find him annoying and mindless and needy and unconscious. I never want to feel like I am all he has and needs because I don't want to be someone's everything.
Yes. Yeah, it's like I don't ever want to be someone's everything. You could write it like that, that second part. Thank you. Great. Anyone else? Anyone else want to share what you discovered? Okay. Thank you. Up at the top. Okay.
Hello. So it's the end of the day at work. I'm sitting and it's on my phone.
So we can't hear you very clearly. Can you?
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So it's the end of the day. I'm at work, sitting and texting on my phone. So Habib, let's say Alan, whatever, manipulates me using my sensibility. So I want Alan to open up and talk honestly instead of hiding his intentions, lying and manipulating me. And I want him to find solutions that don't require lying. Alan should assess logically his emotional situation to identify solutions that stay honest to himself and others. I need Alan to talk about how his situation is affecting him personally and to be honest about finding solutions that don't require for me to lie for him. Alan is in pain, suffering, selfish, lost, blinded, a liar, a manipulator, very pushy, not understanding, immature, young, hurt, ungrateful.
Yeah, for starters.
Yeah. And I never want to be insulted or abused again because of my kindness that is being mistaken for weakness.
Yes. Thank you. There was someone at the top. If you'll go to the top there. Yeah. Yeah, please stand so that the mic runner can see where you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you'll stand while you read your sheet.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. So it's 1:30 a.m. and I'm at home. I'm lying in bed and my boyfriend just got home from work. So in this situation, who upsets you and why? So Kenneth says one thing but does another. I want Kenneth to realize that he can achieve his goals if he puts his right intentions and his mind to start and finish projects, or at least try. Kenneth should seek help to motivate himself and change his current situation. I need Kenneth to see all the potential he has and what he can give to the world, find the path that will allow him to grow and flourish through life. Kenneth is going the wrong way, wants the easy way out instead of dealing with the hard work of growing and sharing his vulnerability with me. I never want to hurt his feelings or make him feel small or afraid of the future. I never want to criticize him in order to be right instead of listening to his needs, dreams, and aspirations.
Yeah. Thank you. And before you take away the mic, will you read your wants again, number 2?
Oh, sure. I want Kenneth to realize that he can achieve his goals if he puts his right intentions and his mind to start and finish projects, or at least try.
So when we begin to do the work together, that's going to be a really long concept to hold, a long thought to hold, and I hear 2 or 3 in there. So will you repeat it again?
I want Kenneth to realize that he can achieve his goals.
So I would hold that there, and then if you can hold the second part and turn it into another want, and then I want him to try, at least to try. Okay. Always holding the meaning that you wrote, but just to be able to make it more concise. Okay. So for all of us, just to look at what we've written and to ensure ourselves that it's simple enough, holding all the meaning that you had in it, but that it's simple enough that you can hold when we take it to inquiry. Okay, anyone else like to volunteer to share your worksheet? Okay, up there. If you'll stand, then the mic runner can see where you are.
It's the morning. We're getting ready to leave the house to go take my kids to school. So we're in person and we're standing. Gabby is being mean to me. I want Gabby to talk to me kindly. I want Gabby to care about my feelings. Gabby should take a deep breath. Gabby should look at my face. I need Gabby to stop and say, sorry, Mommy, I got really upset and I love you. I need Gabby to hug me. Gabby is impulsive. She's selfish. She's entitled. And I never want to feel like I have to silence her in order to feel more secure.
Yes. Thank you. Okay, so in a moment, I'm going to ask you to turn to a partner sitting next to you, and you're going to read your worksheet, only what you've written, and just notice the thoughts that you're having right now. So before you start, so just notice the thoughts you're having, and no one has to do this exercise. And the invitation, so can we just have silence for a moment, please? So the invitation is to read what you've written only, and just notice how you want to justify parts of it or omit some parts of it. And as best as you can, don't. And just feel what it feels like to just stand in what you were experiencing. You know, we've been wanting to be heard. We've been wanting to express ourselves, and we want people to hear us, and then here's an opportunity. Okay? And so as a listener, my job is to just take in what my partner is sharing and allow only thank you to be enough. And just notice again if you feel like you want to connect in a certain way, and just say, oh, I know, me too, that happened to me, and just refrain from that and just allow just your listening to be enough. Okay? And so when you turn to each other, just determine who's going to begin, and then allow thank you to be enough, switch roles, the other partner reads the whole worksheet, and then when everyone is in silence, we know to move on, okay? So please turn to your partner and read your worksheet now. No. So just notice Are you just reading what you wrote? And as a listener, are you just taking it in? And when both partners have shared their worksheet, please just drop into silence. And just, again, just get in touch, feel what it feels like to have just shared all of those thoughts, all of those judgments. And notice what it was like just to be heard. Anyone like to share what your experience was? Just to be heard? Or to be able to express it? Yes? Oh, does anyone need more time? Good. So we'll take a couple minutes to finish. Thank you. And for those of you who were finished, just to stay in silence. So who would like to share what that experience was like? Just to be heard? Or what was it like to listen and to not share anything more than just 2 words, thank you? What was that like to be just a listener? Yes. So will you wait for the mic, please? Yeah. And if you stand, then they'll see who to give the mic to.
Okay, so for me it was hard because I always have to give my input. So just to sit and listen and think. So just to sit and listen, I really appreciated it. And when I was talking, it was actually a really good experience as well because it made me express my feelings that typically I would just keep inside.
Yes, thank you. What was it like to be a listener?
Yes, that's what I meant when I said it was hard for me because usually as a listener, I always have to give my input.
Yeah.
So to refrain from giving comments, especially with my neighbor here because I know her. So it was a little bit difficult, but I did appreciate not saying anything and just doing the thank you at the end.
Yes. And for you, just to be listened to without any input, how was that?
Well, it was a little bit hard because we know each other. And for me, the topic was my son, and we each have opinions on my children, which aren't the same sometimes, but I gratify much her opinion. So it was just a question of, me telling her something, and she was just listening, and she said thank you at the end. And I was waiting for that, opinion, and it didn't come.
So what was
so I returned
available?
the favor. I just listened.
Yeah. What was available in that space
What do you mean,
where
what was,
where there was no opinion coming?
So what do you mean? What was
as you were just not receiving any of her input?
Well, it's a little bit different, right? So we know each other and we discuss a lot of difficult topics that we have between us.
Yeah. So not have the
usually it's
discussion.
help. She gives me a lot of help. I hope I give her some help, but she gives me a lot of advice that's good for me and I've used, right? So in this one, it was like, is she gonna give me the advice or is she gonna,
Yeah, so you were left waiting. You were left waiting.
I was waiting.
Okay, anybody else? What did you discover? Thank you.
I at first, I hated this exercise. In fact, when you said we needed to share, I thought, well, whoa, I thought this was a safe sheet. I thought we weren't supposed to say or share, and I wasn't going to. And then I thought, well, I'm here. Let's just do it. So I shared it. I found it. I felt quite naked.
Yes.
I felt very vulnerable, and although she's a friend, I still felt quite vulnerable because it's not something I really discuss with even most of my closest friends. So it was one of those things where it was the first time I gave voice to this particular issue in my life. So yeah, I didn't like it at first, but I think in the end it became a positive thing, albeit still scary, but a positive step forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, and daring to move beyond that fear. Anyone else?
Can I go?
Yes, please.
Hi,
Thank
everyone.
you. I can't see very clearly from here, so yeah.
It's okay, I'm over here. So for me, just writing out my feelings and answering the questions was, I think, very powerful.
Yes.
It had been something that was bothering me for quite a while now and causing a lot of ups and downs. And just writing it, putting it on paper,
Yes.
gave me the solution that I've been looking for, I'd say, for weeks now.
Wow.
And it actually, the whole situation actually also affected my health, but also brought about a lot of things that I should look at in my life. So I did get some gold nuggets out of it. And as a listener, my sister is next to me, and she had brought up this issue, but in a very shallow way. So I hadn't realized how much it affected her. And just hearing her was very, very moving, I kind of wanted to help. I'm the oldest sister, so I had to listen and not say anything.
Yes.
But the oldest sister role kind of came, oh my God, I gotta help her. I gotta tell her this. So it was very challenging to just listen, and there's a lot of emotions there.
Yeah.
But to listen and just offer her that space, I think that's what she needed. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what we just did was the first part of the work, which is to identify what we were thinking and believing in a given situation that is causing us stress. So now we're ready to be able to take our thoughts to inquiry, take our thoughts to the work, which is those 4 questions and turnarounds. So who would volunteer to come up on stage here and be facilitated as a demonstration for everyone? Yes? So would you read your worksheet? Mm-hmm. Yeah, or just come up here and then I need another volunteer who will be the facilitator, meaning the one who asks the questions. Thank you. Yeah, we can do it here. It's perfect, yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to be here with you, and I'm going to offer support if there's a need for support. And so as a facilitator, thank you for coming. What's your name?
My name is Monia.
Hi, Monia. And what is your name? Atena. Atena, thank you.
Atena.
Atena. Okay.
The goddess.
Yeah. Oh, Athena. Yeah.
We're happy to have you in our presence.
So, as the facilitator, your job is simply to be able to read these 4 questions. That's all you have to do. So everyone in your folder, you'll find a little yellow card, and you can follow along. And so, Athena, if you pull out your worksheet. Great, so will you start just by reading your worksheet? Thank you. And thank you for your courage.
Thank you. Yes, I love to share my vulnerabilities with the world, and I believe this is something that we all need to go through because we all have our own vulnerabilities. There is no one perfect, and I'm so happy for this opportunity that I'm sharing with the world.
Okay, so let's hear your worksheet.
I'm very, it's few years that I have a big pain in my heart from my own relatives, my aunt and her families. And I'm very disappointed because before 4 years ago that I immigrated to Canada, I purchased the property with my ex. We came here, and after a very short time, maybe about 2 weeks, he discovered that he doesn't belong to this world, and he wanted to go back to our country, Iran. He made the decision, and my aunt and her family, they took the property that we purchased from Iran, and which was under their name. They took us that property for themselves.
Okay.
And that was, I found it was very cruel.
Yes.
Very unfair.
So now we're all there. We all have the situation, and now let's hear what you wrote.
The second part I should.
Yeah. So what did you write in number 1?
Number 1, I wrote that I'm very disappointed from my aunt and her families. I'm very upset.
Yes.
For their cruelty and being very unkind, of course.
Okay. So what did you write? Just read just the words that you wrote.
My aunt and her family, they took all my investments. They were extremely cruel to me.
Thank you. And then number 2. In this situation, how do you want them to change? What do you want them to do?
I want them to accept their mistake, to confess their cruelty, give my money back, and take the responsibility and damages they caused in my life.
Yes. And what advice do you have for them in this situation?
To be kind, to be kind, to be kind, to be open, to be understanding. And not to be judgmental, not to punishing other people because they think that the others are doing mistakes or wrong. And again, be kind and wise.
Thank you. And in order for you to be happy in this situation, what do you need them to think, say, feel, or do? Number 4.
I want them, they confess that and take action for what they did and how they changed my life and how they caused they hurt me.
Thank you. And number 5, what do you think of them in this situation?
First, I really liked them.
Well, in this situation where they took all of your investments and they were extremely cruel to you, what do you think of them in that moment?
I think they were very unfair. I believe they have some mental challenges. Very judgmental, very unfair, and selfish.
Yes. And what is it about this situation you don't ever want to experience again?
I don't want to experience again dishonesty, cruelty. I don't want others, especially the ones that I trust, take advantages of me and hurt me.
Thank you. Okay, so you can keep your mic. So Monia, you're going to take Athena through her worksheet, and we're going to be questioning each thought one at a time. And so the first thought is, they took all my investments.
They were extremely cruel to me.
They took all my investments from me. So as a facilitator, what I like to do is I like to write down what the thought is, because it supports me in remembering what it is. They took all my investments. So we all know the situation. Thank you. So we all know the situation when they've repossessed this house, right? So Monia, I'm going to let you take the lead.
So from here, the question on your first thought is it true? Is it true that they did all that to you?
They took all your investments.
They took all your investments, and the cruelty.
And just that's enough. The cruelty will be the second belief that we'll look at. So we only just need to hold that for now.
Is it true? And it's just a yes or no.
Yes.
From here, I think we move to the your second number 2. On can you absolutely know that it is true?
Yes.
In your heart.
Well, not in your heart, because that's not part of the question. But notice how we want to add our little piece. So again, it's like they took all your investments. They took all your investments. Can you absolutely know that that's true?
Yes.
Okay. And now move to the next question.
How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought?
They took all your investments.
Could you please ask the question again?
So I'm going to just say 5 words. They took all my investments.
Mm-hmm.
How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought?
When I'm saying that they took all my investment, I'm talking money-wise. But I was very broken for a year. And I came to myself and I found that I have a lot of courage.
So just,
oh, sorry.
Just, yeah. No, this is perfect, and I'm interjecting just because we're all learning. So how do I react and what happens when I think they took all my investments? So for me, I just close my eyes, if that supports me, and notice, how do I react? What happens when I believe they took all my investments in that situation? And I feel broken. What else? Yeah. How else do you react?
I was deeply depressed. I was feeling that how extremely bad it is that you are you experience such a things from someone very close, from your own blood.
So betrayal.
Yeah, exactly. That's a very good word. Yeah.
Anything else? How do you react? What happens when you believe they took all my investments?
Mostly I had a huge challenge that how it can be that unfair. Like, I know myself as a very kind person, and I found all the time I was thinking that how it can be unfair that happens to me, that everyone, including them, they know me as a good and kind person.
Yeah, so I feel like a victim.
Yeah.
And then just notice what that feels like physically. Notice the emotions. Notice the physical reactions. They took all my investments.
Sorry, what's the question?
Yeah, just to notice what that feels like physically and emotionally. When you believe the thought, they took all my investments.
I was, as I said, I was deeply depressed, and I had all bad feelings in the world.
Yes.
Who would you be without that thought?
So now, same situation, they've still repossessed the home. This isn't like we're glossing over with a positive thinking and changing our reality and pretending. Who would you be in that situation where they've repossessed the home? Who would you be without the thought, they took all my investments?
Like without that experience, right?
Without the thought, yeah. They took all my investments.
If I was still in that thought, I wasn't the person that I am today, because at that time I was thinking that that's the end of the world.
Yes. Yeah, so without the thought, they took all my investments in that situation where you found out that they repossessed the house. Who would you be in that situation without the thought they took all my investments?
The victim. The victim.
And without the thought?
At least I would have keep my my relations with my family.
Okay. So now we're going to turn the thought around. And so they took all my investments. We're going to turn it around and look at an opposite. Okay? So again, we're just meditating on that moment when she finds out that they've repossessed the house. They've took all my investments. Turn it around. What's an opposite?
I was happy without that thought.
So what's the opposite of they took all my investments?
They didn't.
They didn't take all my
investment. Yeah.
Okay, so in that situation where they repossessed the house, how might it be true that they didn't take all of your investments?
Could you please ask again? Sorry.
What's an example of how it might be true that they did not take all of your investments in that situation where they repossessed the house? So this might seem so strange, right? It's like we're asking ourselves to consider the opposite of what we were thinking and believing. And so just try it on and just see, how might that be true? In that situation, they did not take all of my investments.
What I think with that thought is they took all my investment money-wise, but they couldn't take like what I invested in myself.
Okay, so that's one. And what's another example? They didn't take all my investments. And see if you can find one even in the financial area. Because that's what we meant originally. Like they took all my investments. And what you were holding was financial investments. So how is it true they did not take all your investments financially in that situation?
How could I feel?
Well, how might that be true? They didn't take all your investments. And you might find something and you might not, but we're looking, we're contemplating, we're meditating on a moment, seeing if we might find an example of where that might be true. And sometimes I don't find it right away, but because I've given myself the space to consider, I might find it even later on. And this is, this is a meditation, and you're sitting here in front of 700 people. It's like,
I know, even though I'm going through a lot of emotion, but I'm happy, I'm good.
We're doing very well.
So, so we can open it up to the room. Anybody else see an example? And of course, we can't know for her, and this might not fit. These examples might not fit for you, but they did not take all my investments. Anyone? Right here? Okay, so they did not take away the investment I made in my new life. So maybe that's a fit. Maybe you can see an investment that you made in your new life that they weren't able to take away in that situation. Anyone else?
Can you imagine that the ownership could be returned to you after a while?
Can't know if that fits. That the ownership would be returned to her at one point?
No, because
it was in their name, so it was literally her investment, and it was in the family's name, and they just repossessed. So I can tell you where my mind went. It's small. Were you wearing clothes when you found out?
What?
Were you wearing
Were you
wearing clothes when you found out that they had repossessed?
Yes.
Okay, that's an investment that they didn't take away.
But
it's not good enough.
No. I actually, can I say something like that I believe today?
Yeah.
That I found it today after 4 other years of experience here after that huge bad experience. I found that money is not everything to bring happiness to me.
Yes. Yeah. So they weren't able to take away that. They might even have contributed to you experiencing the reality of that. Okay, so they took away all my investments. Now there's another turnaround that's possible. What would that be?
Can you absolutely know?
So we're just still looking at the turnarounds. Yeah. We did the turnaround to the opposite. And now if you turn it around to yourself, I took all my investments in that situation. I took all my investments.
How do I feel?
Yeah, what's an example? I took away all my investments in that situation.
How do I feel?
Well, how might that be true in that situation? Go back. And how is it true you took away all your investments?
I believe, I took all my investment, as I said, the investment that I've had in myself, because...
Well, look at financially. In that situation, where is it that I took away all my investment or gave away all of my investment? In that situation where they repossessed the house, how is it true I gave away all my investment or I took away all my investment? Yeah.
You can give me an example.
Well, I just saw I invested in something that was not in my name. And this isn't about right or wrong. This is just an example of why it might be true. I took away all my investment in that situation. So I'm just looking for what's my responsibility here? What part am I holding? And this is this is personal work, and to be gentle when you find these examples. So can you find where that's true? I gave away my investment, or I took away my investment by investing in something that was not in my name?
I took away all my investment to find myself more.
Okay, and again, we're just looking at that in that situation where the property was repossessed by them.
Like how my feeling was at that time when I gave it, I was thinking that I gave away all my investment.
Well, we're just looking at reality. It's like I gave away all my investment. I invested in something that was not in my name. I put all my money into something that was not in my name. Yeah.
Yes, I gave my money away because I fully trusted someone that I shouldn't.
And so that's just an example of that turnaround. Okay, so let's keep moving to the next thought. So what did you write in your wants? Yeah.
I want her or her family accept their mistake and confess their cruelty.
Yes, so you want her to accept, you want them to accept their mistake. So that would be the next thought, and do you want to write it down? I want them to accept their mistake and confess. Okay, but I want them to accept their mistake. So now we've identified the second thought to take to the work. Okay, so will you take her through the questions?
So now we're only going to speak about, I want them to accept and confess that error.
That's the thought we're working on.
That's the thought.
Yeah.
Now from that on the turnaround.
So not the turnarounds, we're starting at the 4 questions.
Is it true? Can you absolutely
one
know
at a
it's
time.
true?
So one at a time. So you want them to accept
and confess
their mistake. Is that true? So now I go back to that moment when I found out that they've repossessed the property that I've invested in, and you want them to accept.
I want them to accept the mistake and confess.
Is that true?
Yes, at that time.
And next question.
How do you react?
Number 2.
Can you absolutely know that it is true? That feeling.
Not the feeling, the thought.
I want them to accept the mistake and confess. Can you absolutely know that that is true?
Again, back to that time.
Yeah, when you found out that they repossessed, you want them to accept and confess. Can you absolutely know that that's true? That you want them to accept and confess their mistake? And it's just a yes or a no, and just notice.
No, it's not true.
Why?
So not why. And don't we all want to know? And again, this is personal work, and so we could move into discussion, and I really want everyone here to get an opportunity to do your work, to experience it, because this is personal work. Okay, so we could discuss it, and there'll be time for that on the other side, but just in the interest of time.
So the same thought, I want them to accept and confess their mistake. How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought? I want them to confess and accept their mistake.
If I want to get back to that time, that's what I was challenging all the time, to convince them that to accept.
And notice what it felt like. It's like, notice what it feels like to be in that wanting. I want them to accept and to confess their mistake, and they're not doing that. Notice how it feels. Notice what happens.
It was very anger. Feeling that how unfair it is. And again, why me? Why me?
The fourth question, I'm going to just say it again. I want them to accept and confess their mistake. Who would you be without that thought?
I don't want they accept.
Yeah, it's like, who would you be without the thought that you want them to accept and confess their mistake in that situation?
It was my mistake that fully trusted.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is noticing your part in it. Like noticing that you trusted.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean there's not disappointment or sadness. It's just, what I'm hearing is no longer anger and waiting on them. Noticing.
I'm noticing that I have to take responsibility for my mistake, for the trust.
Yeah. So let's turn the thought around. I want them to accept and confess their mistake. I want me. I want me, and then turn it around. I want me to.
Okay. I want me to accept their mistake, to accept my mistake and confess.
So could that be,
wow.
Yeah, so could that be as true or even truer in this situation?
Mm-hmm.
I want me to accept and confess my mistake.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And again, this doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with having trusted them. It's just now I'm taking responsibility for my part in it and not blaming and feeling the effects of blame for at least that portion of my responsibility for it. And who benefits from that? No longer blaming. I do. So we're already stepping into more power. And it would seem to be the opposite, right? Like we hold them accountable and we feel like we're powerful, and yet we're living out of a victim mentality and suffering over it. It's the oddest thing. Accept my mistake, confess it, and move on from that anger, which, as I hear from you, was painful and debilitating. So I want them to accept and confess their mistake. What's another turnaround? What's the opposite of I want them? What's the opposite of I want?
I want myself.
I don't want.
I don't want. Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to
I don't
confess.
want to confess. I don't want them to accept and confess.
So why might that be true?
Because if they were fair enough, they wouldn't do that. Then I don't want that they accept or confess.
What do you mean by that? Can you say it another way? I don't want them to accept and confess their mistake.
If they knew or they know that they did a mistake, they wouldn't do that. Then they did it, and still I'm disconnected to that world because they don't believe that they did a mistake.
So you don't want them to say something that isn't true for them?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. So just notice how the mind, just as soon as you've offered this opportunity to consider, I mean, her mind is so open, she's already just looking at an example of why that might be true, and she's discovering things. Any other example? I don't want them to accept and confess their mistake.
I don't want they confess or accept because they are not fair people.
Okay, so that might be like
they live in their own beliefs.
Yes.
Their own world.
They're believing something different. Okay, and so we just be careful with these turnarounds because we don't want to find an example that continues to justify our original belief. It's like the turnaround is an invitation to consider, is there anything that I missed that I wasn't able to see? And that's opening my heart and my mind to the situation or the people in a way that I just hadn't seen before. Okay? Okay, so that's an example of what we're going to be doing today. And thank you so much for your willingness to demonstrate in front of everybody and for your willingness to do it. And I'm cutting us short here because I want everyone to sit in their work together. And so notice how we circled the first thought, and then when we did the 4 questions and the turnarounds, and then we moved to the next thought, and we did the 4 questions and the turnarounds for the next thought. And that's what we're going to all be doing together today. Pair it up, okay? Thank you.
Thanks a lot for being patient and listening to me.
Thank you. So with this work, you can go as deeply or as deeply as you want. You can take your time to do that, and I invite you to not rush. Actually, before we move, Jan, would you be willing to facilitate me on one of my beliefs? And you can just do it from here. Just gonna find my worksheet here. Okay. So mom isn't listening to me in that situation. Yeah, so again, I'm outside in the driveway. She's wanting to take my son to the pool, and she's not listening to me. I've said no, and she's insisting and telling me it's going to be okay, and she'll be there, and it'll be safe.
Your mom isn't listening to you. Is that true? Your mom isn't listening to you. Is that true?
Yes.
your mom isn't listening to you, can you absolutely know that it's true?
So just to share where my mind is going, I'm seeing her not listening, continuing to interject, and yet what just came is I can't know in her experience if she's listening or not. But I'm noticing my mind is discounting that, and I'm still waiting for either a clear yes or a clear no. And there's no right or wrong answer here, okay? These 4 questions, they don't care what we answer. They're just available to us, from us. So can I absolutely know that it's true in that situation? She's not listening to me. She isn't listening to me. No.
How do you react? What happens when you believe that thought?
I start to talk louder, yell. Actually, I was yelling. I stop listening to her. I'm trying to override what she's saying. I'm trying to convince her of my fear.
How do you treat yourself when you believe that thought?
So, and Jan's asking, like, how do I treat myself? It's kind of like it's like a sub-question that you can ask, and how do I react, and what happens when I think the thought she isn't listening to me. I'm impatient. And I begin to attack myself for not being patient with her. For being so triggered. I'm seeing images of my son drowning, is what I'm seeing. And I'm feeling like I'm caught in having to make her happy, say yes to her, and make her happy, and or honor my fear. And then I see that it's my fear, and I start to question myself, and yeah, so I get really confused.
Who would you be without the thought?
So without the thought, she isn't listening to me. I mean, I see she's really excited. I see Zia is really excited to go to the pool. I'm a no. There's no floaties. So where can we find floaties? I notice I'm starting to look for floaties. I'm not bumping up against her. I'm just looking for a solution without the thought. Yeah, I don't feel like I don't need to go to war with her. I don't need to convince her without the thought. I feel like I'm on their side without the thought.
Can you find a turnaround?
She's not listening to me. She is listening to me. Where I found my no was she has to be listening to be able to continue to argue. At least that's how I argue. I listen just enough to be able to use it in my argument. she is listening to me. She's hearing my fear, and she just doesn't see it as necessary because it's a paddling pool. It's like there's like this much water.
Thank you. Can you find another turnaround?
I'm not listening to me. Where did I not listen to me in that situation? I wasn't listening to my fear in a way that wasn't throwing me. So I was either pushing it away and judging myself for having it, or I was completely believing it, and so I wasn't listening in that way. I wasn't listening to me. I wanted him to be safe, and I wasn't finding a way to make him safe. I was just saying no. I wasn't listening to me. I can't find another one right now, unless you see something. Okay. I wasn't listening to her. So that's the third turnaround. 100%. Unless I was using what she was saying to throw it back in her face. So not genuinely listening. Yeah, she really wanted to do something, just the two of them. She felt really safe. That part of the pool is really shallow for quite a while. He doesn't know how to swim. That's justification. I wasn't listening to her. Yeah. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to stop there, but I could sit longer in it and continue to discover. And I just wanted you guys to have another example of what it's like to sit in these questions. So notice how I wasn't in conversation with Jan. I was answering for myself these questions and only allowing what was authentic to come up and meet the question. So I'm hearing the question, we're asking, and then we're waiting for the answer to meet the question. So when you pair up now to do this work together, the invitation is to, as a client, to just give yourself the space to see what answers come to meet the questions. And you might find a lot, you might find nothing, and just be curious. Be curious about what that question brings up for you. And as a facilitator, my job is to only ask what the questions are on the little yellow card. And again, like with the listening exercise, just notice how there might be a desire to interject or a desire to share. And please refrain from doing so. And if you find some insights, that's beautiful. That's for you, and you can hold them and you can share them with your partner later. And just to really allow us to have this time to test the work for ourselves. Yes.
Here? Okay. I have a question concerning the first question we need to ask ourselves or our partner. Is it true?
Yes.
How can we answer that? It's a thought. It's never yes or no. It's I don't know if it's true or not.
Well, if I don't know, then that means that there's probably a no in there, because
Yes, I would go
when it
directly
comes
to the second.
when it comes to the absolute. But just allow yourself to witness the mind and how it shows you proof of yes, it shows you proof of no. Because here's the thing with the mind. Its job is to prove what it believes. So if it's been believing she isn't listening to me, all it's showing me is proof of how that's true. That's its job. So now we're kind of taking a moment and asking, oh, is it true? Can I really know if it's true? So now I'm taking a moment, a pause. I'm getting in touch with reality versus what I think, my assumption or my interpretation of reality. So that's what this work is doing. It's slowing it down, and we're getting in touch with reality. Okay? Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you're going to pair up with someone sitting next to you, and just like you witnessed up here, you choose who's going to be the client first, and you'll each have 20 minutes. So we're going to let you know when it's time to switch, and please just hold silence for a moment longer. So please just be silent for a moment longer, please. Thank you. When the 20 minutes is up, it'll be time to switch, and you might be in the middle of a piece of inquiry. You might just be in, is it true, or how do you react when you believe that thought? And that's okay, just find a place to close, and then we'll switch partners, and then we'll do another 20 minutes before we come back, okay? And if anybody needs a partner or is left out, just come and we'll find you a partner. And there's going to be 4 people that have experience in the work here that are going to just be walking up and down, and if you get stuck, first try to see if you can figure it out on your own. And if you need support, we're here to support you. Okay? Are there any questions? Okay, so enjoy your work. You're confused about your original thought. It's like, what was I thinking? What was that again? It's like trying to grasp it as it slips away. Anybody else? I'm a little bit more hot-headed than I thought I was.
Yeah, thank you for this exercise. It's really good. I just want to know, how are we supposed to wrap this up?
Well, what do you mean?
Well, at the end of it, okay, we did all the turnaround, and as the coach or as the person who listens,
yes,
how do we end this discussion?
Well, it could be it never ends the discussion. It's like
that's
we're
the thing.
Yeah, we're getting to know the mind. We're waking up to what might be truer, waking up to reality. And it could be that it's an ongoing conversation as my mind continues to bombard me with assumptions or preconceived notions or judgments about what's going on.
So if we stick to those questions, we kind of say nothing in the end. It's like, thank you for sharing, but...
Oh, you mean as a facilitator?
Yes.
Oh. You know, for me, it's just, you know, thank you.
No, what do you realize?
Well, I'm just going to stick to the yellow card because it's like we're doing the work, we're not in discussion. You know, and for some of you, you might have noticed there was a little bit of both, and not right or wrong, we're just learning. And, you know, we're so used to, like the two of you were saying this morning, or earlier in the session, you know, we're so used to being supportive and offering our advice and giving our thoughts on a situation of a friend that's going through a difficult time. And with the work, we're trying something completely new. You know, with the work, we're meditating, contemplating, reflecting, and it's personal work. So rather than receiving somebody else's insights, we're making space to receive our own. And for some of us, it's the first time we've ever done that. You know, this work, it feels like it gave me back to me. You know, I didn't know how to access her anymore. I was so busy wondering what other people thought, or trying to track what is it that I should do in a situation, how does it work, so that I would be approved of, so that I would be loved, so that I would be included. And in that pursuit, I completely lost myself. And that became evident when I started to slip into depression and anxiety. And no one has to have experienced trauma to basically question their own thinking. You know, it's like scientists, they don't live in absolutes. They're always questioning. So this is what we're doing. We're becoming like scientists of our own mind and experience. Imagine if someone was saying something or was just talking at you, and you were believing everything that they said as if it was true, without questioning it. This is what we're doing, but from the inside. So with the work, we're basically just adding a little question mark at the end of any thought that would hit. I love, you know, the founder of the work, Byron Katie, I hear her say, like, do you wake up in the morning and think, today I think I'm going to think? You wake up and you're already being thought. Thoughts are happening. So now we're just getting in touch with whether they're true for us in this moment or not. And then whether they're true or not, regardless, what's the effect of that? What's the impact? How does it feel? How do I begin to treat others or myself when I believe that? And then who would I be in that situation without that thought? What did you discover in that question? Who would you be in that situation without the thought?
Thank you. I learned that I was using the conflict and my spinning around the conflict to distract me from who I would be without that thought. That it was actually preventing me from moving forward professionally.
You caught a little game that you play with you, a manipulative game.
Absolutely. And it's so clear now. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the opportunity.
Thanks for, you know, taking the time to honestly go in and answer these questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? What did you become aware of over there? Grace?
First of all, thank you so much. I have never experienced something like this before, so it's very new for me, and I'm trying to get to know this a little bit more deeper. I have one question. Like the exercise we just did, there are some thoughts, like everyone else experienced, that they were imaginative. We create our own bubble, and then we kind of live in it, and we have assumption world that we live in. So as I'm trying to break out of it, where is the fine line there? There's some truth to some situations that does really happen, and then there's assumptions, or added assumptions to it. So how do we discover that fine line?
Well, for me, it's discovering how much is that situation actually impacting me in reality, or is it what I'm thinking about that situation that's impacting me? So I can't change that situation, but I can witness how I'm thinking about it and whether that's true or not. And then even if it is, I can consider who and what I would be without it. And that's really exciting, you know, to actually step into where I do have a little bit of control, you could say. You know, is it that thing that's causing my pain? Or is it what I'm believing and thinking about that thing that's causing my pain and suffering? And that's often what we discover. And what a relief. You know? Can we? Oh, sorry.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity for the exercise. My question goes a little bit in the same direction. For example, my case was from a true thing that happened.
Yeah, a fact, a statement of fact.
A fact that was coming from something somebody believed about me that was obviously not true. And I am...
In your experience?
In the reality. In the reality. I was accused of something that when I found out it was, what?
Yes.
So it did affect me, but I could discuss and reflect and meditate on why does it affect me like that? But I could also say, okay, well, from now on, I just won't let what everybody, y'all think whatever you want from me, I'm not gonna let that affect me. Because, for example, the Iranian lady earlier, we were talking about what it took away from her, but it didn't take away her dignity or who she is, her essence. So whoever thinks about us doesn't define who we are. So shouldn't we just say, okay, you know what? I believe in myself. I'm doing good with my life. You don't like to think about me like that? Treat yourself. I'm not gonna let that affect me.
And when I'm caught in believing that it's true, I don't have access to that. So I can't just do a positive affirmation that wasn't good enough for me.
True.
You know, and so what I love about this work is I can meet the pain where it is. I can write it down, get clear, and then from that, realize what you just shared. Mm-hmm. But it's not a concept anymore, it's a realization. Yeah. So it comes from a different place.
Okay,
it's like when Grace was speaking earlier about, you know, understanding. You know, we read all of these amazing authors and teachers, and it makes so much sense, right? And then how do we apply that? How do we actually embody it and realize it for ourselves? What I've noticed for myself is that this work is the quickest and fastest route.
Yeah, because it takes time.
It does. It does. And what else are we going to do? You know?
But it's so good once it's done.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There was someone right behind you, the gentleman in the back, please.
I just want to share my point of view on the work, the process.
Yeah, what did you become aware of?
I think this process will help a lot of people. Because when we have the thought, most of the time, that thought is negative thought.
It
and
is?
That negative thought.
Yes.
And that negative thought will impact the emotion, the life, for a long time. The process of the work, which first to identify whether that thought is real, is correct, is absolutely there. And then you question about whether whether it's absolutely there, and then you look into the different way of looking at how you are able to get out of that thought. Because at the end, you'll find that you will come to the end that you will be able to be away from that original negative thought. And through the process, like you look at other alternative of thinking the same questions, like, yes, he hurt me, or he may not be hurting me, or I hurt myself. So you have a different way of thinking in the process. And the end, that negative thought is going to disappear. And that negative thought, when it is disappeared, then your body come back to the real, happy, peaceful, and joyful life. And I think that process will help many people to address those negative thoughts for a long time. So
yeah, it's like I can't have questioned that thought and not have access to the answers that come to me. So the next time I believe that, the work I just did now, it's accessible somewhere. It might show up in me. And so it's always preventive medicine. Anytime I sit and question any of my beliefs, I'm already opening my mind to something more.
Yeah, that's what I think is very useful for many people to resolve some of the issue in their mind.
Yeah, I know it's effective to resolve my issues, and that's, you know, a strong beginning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So, if you look in your folder, there's a one belief at a time worksheet. And this is a paper facilitator. So now rather than doing the work with a partner, you're going to sit and do the work in silence with yourself. And you're going to have about 8 or 9 minutes to answer, and you might not get through it, but I just want you to experience what it's like to sit in these questions on your own. So if you'll look at your Judge Your Neighbor worksheet that you filled out, identify one of the thoughts that you didn't get around to with your partner. Maybe it was in answer number 3, the advice, what they should or shouldn't do in that situation. So you might identify one of those thoughts and put it on your one belief at a time worksheet. And if you'll transfer it on there now and just begin this meditation of the work with yourself.
For me, I need to listen more. That's very clear. I hear, I
So
have
hold the mic a little bit closer so we can all
it's
hear.
more collective listening that I seem to execute quite often. So I listen half, and the parts that I avoid in the conversation, I don't really want to hear.
Selective listening.
Selective listening is where I'm finding my weakness. And in that selectiveness is where I'm finding my arguments that arise, that I did have a conversation, but I'm not willing to hear all of it.
Yes.
And that's what I found.
And that's so valuable to find, because I wanted them to listen to me, right? It's like to find out where we're doing the very thing that we have such a prejudice against is really important to discover. So this isn't about shaming and blaming ourselves. It's just really about waking up to where is it that I'm contributing to the thing that I don't agree with on planet Earth, you know? So it could be that they did it a lot and I just did it a little bit, but I want to know, because it goes against my integrity to do that. How do I know? I didn't want them to do it. Okay, so now look at your number 6 on the original worksheet that you wrote, the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. What you don't ever want to experience again. And the turnaround for the number 6 is a little bit different than the others. So for this turnaround, we read what we don't ever want to experience again. We read it, I'm willing to, and read it that way. So just in silence, look at what you wrote, and start it off with I'm willing to. So could that in fact happen again in reality? That thing that you don't ever want to experience again, could that actually take place again in reality, or even just in your own mind? So imagine living life from the position of I don't ever want to experience what I know could happen again. Notice what it feels like to live from that position. I don't ever want to experience that again. Does that make me open to life? Or does that make me closed and fearful? So the turnaround for number 6 is about welcoming all of life, welcoming all of reality as it might show up, if only in my own thinking. And then the second part is I look forward to. So now read it that way. And notice if there's any superstition, this is where you'll notice it. So I look forward to. So why might that be true? What would that invite? Or what would that allow? Can we have a mic here, please? Thank you.
It would invite experience. Lessons, good, bad, all of it. Just living.
Yeah. Yeah, and if it hurts, I can take it to a Judge Your Neighbor worksheet, and I can find my way through it. It can show me like the rest of what's left there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's exciting.
I like it.
I like it too. My favorite. Okay, so thank you for your focus this afternoon. This is a lot of work all day long, and this is hopefully a tool that you can take home with you and that you can just practice and see if it fits in your toolbox. And I know for myself that taking on the work as a daily practice has dramatically shifted my life and my reality, and I invite you all to test it out and see what you discover. And everything that you received today is available to you free on thework.com. And there's a Do the Work helpline that's anonymous and free, and that's served by people that are in the Institute for the Work and that are certified facilitators. And you can Skype them. They're all over the world. You just go on the schedule there, and they might be there serving in the middle of the night because they live in Australia, and you're just feeling, stressed out, and you'd like support in writing out a worksheet or in working it, and they're available to you. And the worksheets are translated in 34 languages on thework.com also. And so thank you, everybody.
Yeah, and just on the work, it's translated in 34 languages. So it's used really globally. It's used in large corporations. It's used
hospitals, education.
It's continuing education units for some health professionals, in prisons. So this is really widely used. It's not an obscure tool that's, been hiding in some cupboard that we all of a sudden discovered. So hopefully you'll be able to get a little bit more acquainted with it and see how it helps shift you in your life.
Thank you, Grace.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah Maya.